Okay, so I'm back in Houston, and I thought I would put together a video to wrap up some of my thoughts on the trip. So starting off with some statistics. So the trip's really in three parts. Firstly, leaving Texas and crossing the Gulf of Mexico, diverting up to Louisiana, then going solo through the Mississippi and hopping along the coast until reaching Florida. Then the second part was sailing down to Key West, the passage across to Bimini, onto the Berry Islands, and up and around the Abacos. And then finally returning to Bimini, making my way back across the Gulf Stream to Florida, down through the Keys and back up to Port Charlotte. The whole trip was just over 2,400 nautical miles in distance. I logged about 630 hours of sailing. And so the first leg was 1,100 odd nautical miles, then it was about 800 nautical miles on the outward leg, and then just 500 on the way back. My average speed over the whole trip was 3.8 knots, which is pretty slow. What I did notice was that on the first leg, which was super long passages, most of that was sailing, and then the longer the trip went on, the more and more motor sailing I was doing compared to sailing, and obviously on the short legs I was doing more motoring than sailing. On the way back I did much more motoring because I was in a bit of a hurry to get back, I guess, looking back on it. What else? Oh yeah, so the big learning point on the trip was that basically I tried to cover too much ground. I was set too long passages between anchorages on when I was in the islands, and so where I'd start off sailing in the mornings, usually I'd have to put the motor on because by the time I was getting nowhere just sailing and tacking. So that's my big kind of takeaway from this trip, was that I need to give myself much shorter little trips next season. Yeah, I guess related to that, I was always trying to anchor to get somewhere and make sure I was anchored before dark. I did do a couple of nighttime anchorages or anchorings, and so long as I kind of pick them, then I'm pretty happy putting the anchor down at night, just so long as I know it's going to be a good anchorage and plenty of swing room. So that will give me a bit more flexibility, I think, next trip. The other thing I always felt, particularly in the Bahamas, was I was always on the move to the next anchorage. I never really took enough time to stop and just enjoy sitting in an anchorage, exploring a local area, and I think that's what the occasions I did do that for a day or two, I really enjoyed that. So that is the other big aspect which I think I need to figure out for next trip. Part of the reason was, in the end, out of that whole trip, which was 7 months from leaving Houston to getting back to Houston, of that I only had a month in the Bahamas. So I was trying to cover a lot of ground in that month, getting all the way across to the Berry Islands, then up and all the way around the Abacos, and then back. So next time I'm planning to spend at least 3 months in the Bahamas, and that will give me much more time to do little hops and spend a few days at different anchorages, and then I can get in the dinghy. I can do a lot more exploring around the area. So that's planned for that season. So away from the sailing, one thing that struck me was really how super friendly everybody was on the whole trip. People were just so helpful, went out their way to help me. Were super hospitable as well. It was great. It was really interesting, and it kind of really reinforced my faith in humanity, certainly on an individual basis. Of course, there were the odd dick, particularly the wanker in the super yacht that cut me up in Gun Key. But you know, by and large, people were people were great. Yeah, the next thing I wanted to say was that without David and Mike, I probably would have never been able to get started on this trip. You know, so I really give a massive thanks to those guys for their willingness to jump in a little 30-foot plastic boat and head down hundreds of miles into the Gulf of Mexico. You know, I'm glad we got through it with no particular adverse issues. It was an interesting trip, big learning experience for all of us, and yeah, anyway, I just want to say thanks to those guys, and also to Monique for providing shore support, especially when we ran into a few problems and had to divert. I'm also hugely grateful to Neil and Allison and little Neil for welcoming me into their family in Florida. I really don't know what I would have done without you guys, so massive thank you for that. And yeah, you're going to have to put up with me again at the start of next season, so I'm looking forward to seeing you all. So yeah, my plans are to get back to Southern back in November. Just wait while the plane goes over. Helicopter actually, by the sounds of it. It'll probably take me a week or so to get the boat ready to go into the water, and then I'm going to work my way down back to the Keys and then across to the Bahamas. Hopefully I'll get to the Bahamas in early January, and this time I'm going to try to head to the Exumas. So across to Bimini, I'm planning to go across to Bimini again, back across to Berry Islands, and then from Berry Islands down to Nassau, and then the Exumas. Then I'm going to be back in Florida by the end of April, early May, because I've got a family celebration of my mum's 80th in the UK in end of May, so I'm going to put the boat back in storage and head over there. Yeah, finally I just want to say thanks to you guys for watching the videos. It's been fun putting them together and documenting the trip. If you hit subscribe, then you'll get notified when the videos start again in November. And in the meantime, have a great summer. And for those of you down under, have a great winter. Alright, see you in November.